Nigeria's main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, has rejected the presidential results from Nasarawa State as announced by the State Collation Officer at the International Conference Center in Abuja. The national chairman of the PDP, Mr. Uche Secondus, who addressed journalists in Abuja, assessed the results from Doma and Wamba local governments in Nasarawa State are compromised by the INEC officials. The PDP polled 283,847 votes, as against the 289,903 votes scored by the All Progressives Congress, the APC.
All results currently being announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is incorrect, thus unacceptable to our party and the people. We are in possession of all our polling unit results, and we are leading. It's stated there in my one. We believe that the attempt by the government and other agencies to manipulate our result is what we are bringing to the knowledge of all Nigerians. That's all. We've used Nasarawa as a case in point that we won there, but election was manipulated, in favor of APC. We'll be briefing you from time to time, but for now, we've pointed out to you that is Nasarawa. Then we will be briefing you, we will be updating you as we go along.
President Mahmoud Buhari says he will not depend on rumors to determine the outcome of the 2019 presidential and National Assembly elections, but will patiently wait for the Independent National Electoral Commission to announce the final results. The president was speaking at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, on his arrival from Daura, his hometown, where he had gone to participate in the elections alongside his wife, Aisha.
Well, I don't want to depend on rumor, so I'm waiting for INEC to formally announce it. I hope Nigerians will appreciate the government made sure that they were allowed in security and peace to cast their votes for whichever party and candidate they wanted.
Meanwhile, Nigerians living in London have been speaking about their expectations from whoever emerges president of the country. While some of them say they want the president to concentrate on fixing power, one respondent believes that tourism should be given more attention by the incoming government.
In the next 4 years, would have to begin.
An area where a lot of revenue can be made, a lot of income, and a lot of jobs can be created as well. The good thing about travel and tourism is that it helps change the persona or the public view of the country, which I think is really important.
My name is Honora Aboa. So my Nigeria, at least the Nigeria that I'd like to see in the next 4 years, would have to begin with power. I'd like to see a Nigeria where power is much more sustained, much more varied, where we move more from dependency on fuel to coal and to solar. I'd like also a Nigeria where education is improved. I like a Nigeria also where security is improved, and I think one of the most important things with Nigeria at the moment also is to make sure that we improve infrastructure. Nigeria needs to be built up. In some cases, almost rebuilt, because we've seen how, contracts for, building structures, building buildings and so on have ended up being, people win the contract and then go and usurp, take some money off it and end up building something that's poor. So I think Nigeria needs to be rebuilt.
Hi, my name is Juliet Asodi, and I believe that Nigeria has a lot to do going forward, particularly with these elections. So whoever wins, I believe that they need to really focus on tackling the unemployment issues. There is a higher 23% unemployment issues at the moment in Nigeria, and it would be ideal to focus on looking for new jobs and opportunities, particularly for the youth, who are, I would say, most of them are actually at home, idle. A lot of them are having problems as well with the education system and all the problems with the universities, for example, always closing down. So we need to look at opportunities to engage the youth of Nigeria. And that way, the way to do that is, I would say, is to tackle unemployment. So, for example, perhaps looking at focusing on some of the local businesses, giving them access to finance that would enable them to employ the younger generation, and also to develop and build what they already offer.
Some election observer missions have released their preliminary reports on the conduct of the 2019 presidential and National Assembly elections. Our correspondent Kayla Megwa reports that while each observer mission pointed out flaws in the electoral process, they, however, applauded the electoral umpire for a job done in ensuring a transparent process and Nigerians for their conduct during the polls.
In Nigeria, the Independent National Electoral Commission requests the presence of election observers as a sign of the country's commitment to a democratic process which meets international best practices. The missions have stated categorically that they have no interest in the results of the elections, and these initial assessments are to make the electoral process better. They did note some flaws in the conduct of the polls, but overall, they described the election as transparent.
The mission also notes the security challenges that occurred on the day of elections, particularly in Maduguni, where prior to the commencement of polls, heavy shelling was heard. This situation undoubtedly affected the voter turnout, as voters could not turn out in numbers to vote under such circumstances. Our observers in Port Harcourt also reported that elections could not hold in the entire Akugu, Toru, and Boni local government areas, and a number of polling units in Okrika in the River State due to disruption of the voting process. The ECOWAS observation mission considers the electoral process were largely peaceful and transparent, as voters were able to cast their votes freely. The mission commends the general public and the voters for their patience and determination to exercise their civic responsibility.
Election-related violence and loss of life, which occurred in a number of places, is deeply troubling. I believe Nigeria can do better.
There was clear partisan programming by the Nigerian Television Authority, state-run media, and local commercial radio stations owned by politicians. With the exception of few states, voters had limited access to diverse and factual information on which to make an informed choice.
The election observer missions will release a post-election report at the end of the polls, which will serve as an advisory for the election umpire. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
The acting Inspector General of Police, Mahmoud, Adamu, is angry over the attack on a Deputy Commissioner of Police in Brass, Bayelsa State, and has ordered the immediate arrest of persons involved in the attack. The IGP said in a statement that under his watch, brazen acts of impunity will not be condoned. He, however, commended Nigerians who, he says, have condemned the attacks and gave assurance that the police will continue to ensure peace and stability in the country. Meanwhile, suspects have been arrested in Umuahia, Abia State, over an attack on the Deputy Superintendent of Police who was defending the sanctity of the electoral system at a collation center. Meanwhile, he says Deputy Commissioner of Police and the DSP are in good health.